Hero Class Civil Warfare by Rogue Druid. Chapter 4: Hard Counters, Delay Tactics, and Time. Day 1, 7 hours, 14 minutes, 7:14 a.m. local time. In all honesty, Shoto could do without the long silences of the fake city. While it was decorated with cars and the occasional civil bot stood or wandered small paths through the city itself was quiet. On the corner across the intersection from his hiding place was the short wall and squat building identified as the district's government building. It was a horrendous piece of postmodern architecture, all blocky, brutalist angles and large windows. He and his team were crouched in an alley while Tsuburaba's team had taken over watch on a nearby roof. A glance back showed his capture squad. Bondo Kojiro, the towering giant with the adhesive quirk, stood at the back of the group, crouched. One of his teammates, the petite Komori Kanoko, sat on his shoulder, arm already half covered with moss and small mushrooms. As she used her quirk, she sent the spores towards the building to help prepare to seal it off. Closer were the other two members, Mineta Minoru, the mini pervert with the sticky balls, and Sero Hanta, the tape quirk. Looking up, he tapped the small earpiece he wore, contacting Tsuburaba's team. "Tsuburaba, we are preparing to seal the building off. Any sign of the villains?" "Not yet. There are several downed civil bots in that courtyard, though, most moving weakly." Tsuburaba's voice echoed slightly over the radio, but Shoto heard it just fine. "Understood. Keep me updated." With that, he tapped his comm again and considered how to proceed. He decided a dash to get closer, even if just to the outer wall would be best. "Komori, start with the paralytics. Everyone else, medical masks." Sero, Mineta, and Shoto all slid their masks on. Then, with a nod, Tsuburaba turned the corner. Filled with purpose, he began striding out into the street towards the government building, his team falling in a diamond position. "Contact, front doors, single target." The crackle of the radio was unexpected, making his team tense as they continued. "He's moving to meet you. Watch out." The heroes were halfway across the intersection when a figure dressed in matte black body armor and deep blue accents, a long black jacket, gas mask, and hood, stepped out from around the corner of the gate, one hand up in a placating motion. "Heroes, so nice of you to show up." A muffled and distorted voice called out. Shoto slowed. The rest of his team spread out behind him. "Flank and capture. Go." Shoto began. "I really wouldn't, heroes." From his pocket, the villain... Who was this? Shoto didn't recognize them. Pulled a very easily identifiable object. Black plastic, a big red trigger, and a radio receiver antenna. A detonator. After all, the fireworks show we have prepared is very loud. Shoto stopped, tensing. This wasn't an assault mission anymore. It was now a hostage situation. Over the comm, he could already hear Tsuburaba radioing in. Bakugo would never let him live this down. Katsky jumped, using an explosion to twist in midair, dodging back. The early morning sunlight was their biggest ally and their biggest enemy right now. Kuroiro's quirk, black, allowed him to fuse with the black air cast by the shadows and smoke, which made the entire area of space he was connected to pitch black. That amorphous cloud was wrapped around the middle of the street, centered on Tokoyami. The fact that the streets leading up to the sun-backed bank were cast in shadows meant that they were almost entirely consumed by the shifting and twisting mass of darkness. A glance at the clock told Katsky he had time on his side, as noon would be approaching. But that didn't really matter because he leapt over a massive chunk of a car being slammed out of the shadows. Dark Shadow was more than powerful enough to rip through anyone in his way while in the shadows, and that wall of cars wasn't a blockade. A twisted chunk of bus crashed off the nearby walls, shattering a glass front. It was ammunition. Katsky had already ordered Shiozaki's team and his own to start rescuing civil bots, rushing them to a designated shelter a few blocks away. At this point, despite Katsky's sincere anger at the situation, all he could do was wait for the sun to rise high enough so they could get close. He glanced around. His team was the hammer of the squads. Tetsu, Kirishima, Sato, and Rin Hyoru. All physical fighters with some form of strength or durability enhancement. Even now, they were holding the line, catching or deflecting the tossed bits of automobiles, while Shiozaki's more ranged and a utility-focused support team dealt with civilians. He hissed as he got a report over the comms from Tsuburaba. Half and Half was stuck in a standoff, and they had no idea who the opponent they faced was. All they could tell was that they were male, taller than normal, and didn't show signs of a mutation quirk, and had a gas mask, so the spores from Shroom Girl wouldn't affect him. That narrowed it down to maybe 1 of 5 possible people. The 4 Class B guys who were villains, or Aoyama. It probably wasn't Aoyama, given the figure wore all black and blue. As Katsky blasted another flying tire out of his way, he looked up. It was almost 9 o'clock now. 2 hours and the sun would be high enough to attack again. For now, he gritted his teeth and fell back, barking orders over the comms. He would set up a perimeter, keep the place on lockdown, and see what High Class says. After all, he had a better plan than to send his most mobile team into the tunnels, where they would be at a heavy disadvantage. Instead, he would call them over to help with the bank. He could use another flank. "7 days before the exam, after school. Izuku sat with his back to a tree in the courtyard. He had a few minutes before he had to leave, and there was something about the rules he wanted to check one more time. Rule 12. Heroes and villains are not allowed to enlist the support of UA teachers and staff for extra equipment or training for the exam. UA staff are to be neutral and objective observers of the teams involved. What was more interesting was what it didn't specify. He stood and stretched before turning and almost running into someone. "Oh, sorry, didn't see you there." "No problem," came the quiet voice, as Izuku looked up at the taller boy. He recognized the distinctive 6 arms and face mask. "I was actually looking for you." "Shoji-san?" Izuku tilted his head, curiosity in his eyes. "Could we perhaps walk and talk?" Shoji gestured towards the path leading away from UA. "Of course!" Shoji and Izuku shared pleasant small talk for several minutes until they were close to the gate and away from people. "I'll be clear and simple. I want to join the villain team." Izuku beamed up at Shoji. "Of course you can join. Is there any particular reason why?" Shoji shrugged, looking off into the trees. "At the sports festival, I felt like I underperformed. I was key in the second match, defending my team, but it felt cheap, particularly when losing. Then I saw you and Todoroki fight, and was in awe. You and Todoroki fought like the world was about to end because of ideals. Beyond that, I know you tend to plan and outwit most people in class when it comes to quirks, and I have a strong feeling you can win this. And I'd like to be on the winning side for once. Shoji trailed off, voice softer for that last part. He jerked when Izuku grabbed his shoulder. Well then, came Izuku's voice, dark green eyes glinting with something akin to sharp glee. I suppose I can't let you down now, can I? Shoji was still off guard when Izuku turned and started walking. Come on, villain, let's see what we can work out before we head home. After a moment, Shoji was quick to follow his new leader. Hey guys, it's Tempe. Thank you for getting this far. I really enjoyed reading this fanfiction and I wanted to share it with you. So many people wrote their own takes on how the Civil War for AU would go down, but I enjoyed this one specifically. So if you enjoyed this as much as I did, please consider giving me a like, comment, or subscribing. If you have any suggestions that you would like me to read, please leave a comment or send it to the email in the description. That's everything, so I will see you in the next one. Bye!